Yeah, let's.
Unless we want to, I don't think we're going to want to stand for now.
No, stand. I'll hand you chairs.
Should we stand or sit in front of the whiteboard, or should we sit in front of the...
Doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter? I do see you, Alex.
Yep, Alex is on, and so is Paul.
Oh, good, good. Awesome. Hey.
Good afternoon, how are you?
Good, good, good. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Today is a special special meeting where it's kind of an Ignite recap. There's so much that happens at Ignite, you have to understand. It's just, we could probably spend, well, you could spend more than a day talking about just the announcements. But what I've done is I've taken from what I think are some of the best roadmap decks and taken the best of those roadmap decks and kind of created an Uber roadmap deck. But as well, the thought is that we could actually make this more of a discussion. So I want to talk about the announcements, but I also want it to be not just boom, 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 boom. You guys can go read these. The thought is reactions. You know, what is your reaction to Project Cortex, as an example? What do we think how that's going to change things? And then there's a bunch of people in here going to be like, what's Project Cortex? So, which I think was one of the most significant announcements at Ignite, by the way. So we'll talk about that. Yeah. So to kind of kick things off, if you didn't know, there are drinks and chips and sandwiches. There's some veggie ones for dietary things, and as well as some barbecue pork and some grilled pork in the back there.
Sorry, Paul, we can't send one to you. And Alex.
Online, we have Alex, who's an MVP with Sharp. You want to introduce yourself, Alex?
Yeah, I can do that.
Great.
So my name is Alex Terentiev. I'm Office Development MVP. I work for SharePoint at least here in Los Angeles. I'm a regular contributor to SharePoint PNP initiative, so probably if you're looking at PNP, you will see my name in there in some repositories around different funny development stuff. Yep.
Great. And as well, we have Paul on the line as well, I think.
Yes, I'm here.
Awesome. You want to introduce yourself, Paul?
Oh, yeah. My name is Paul Skrikian. I'm Managing Director of SharePoint Solutions. I'm here more like to back up Alex.
No problem. That's cool. So as well, we have Jeff Wellinger, who's an MVP in the back. We have Ryan Scouten, who's an MVP up front. I think it's worth just having everybody just say your name and where you work. And if there was anything, you don't have to say this, but if there was anything as you were watching the things from Ignite or things you're excited about or things you wanted to hear, just go ahead and add that on to your intro, and we'll just kind of go around the room. And I'll start. I'm Joel Olison. I'm an MVP in RD. I was at Ignite. Had a fantastic time. Very excited to share with you guys what we learned, and I'll be kind of helping moderate the panel, the discussion, and yeah, good times. I'm super excited about Project Cortex and very jazzed about Teams and where it's going. Wayne Gore.
Okay. Ryan Scouten with Blizzard Entertainment, Microsoft MVP in Office Apps and Services. I was not at Ignite, but I did watch some of the keynotes, and some of the stuff I'm loving is the fact that Microsoft's improving some of the things that they kind of left behind for the longest time with managed metadata, and search is getting a lot of new stuff with the Microsoft Search, so a lot of really cool stuff going on.
Awesome. We'll go this way.
I'm Sean Foote. I'm a citizen developer, big fan of the Power Platform, and I haven't seen that much about Ignite, but the one thing that I'm you know, throwing my hands up in the air going, oh, is this gonna be a great decision or just a strange one, is the rebranding of Flow into Power Automate.
We should definitely talk about that.
My name is Alan Foote. I'm a college instructor down at Saddleback College. And the one thing, there must have been some interesting things happening in the educational process at Ignite, because I've signed up for a webinar on Friday talking all about from Microsoft on all the things that are happening in education from the Ignite conference. So I'm going to be interested to hear this.
Absolutely. Well,
Matt Myers. I'm a front-end developer specializing in React, and I've been doing. I'm also a former Proficient guy, but I've been doing like SharePoint install and continuing to do SharePoint intranets with other companies since then. I'm living in Berlin right now.
Nice.
Arturo Alvarado with the RIM Architects, their Office 365 implementer. Really excited about them finally upping the 25 gig limit for OneDrive and increasing it to 100. Some archive files get pretty big, so now put those on there.
Yeah. The individual file upload really got jacked up way up. 100 gigs for a single file.
Yeehaw.
Yeah. Welcome to the big leagues. Yeah.
Igor Karen, I'm collaboration manager at Clean Energy here across the freeway, and I would love to see some wedding pictures. How did it go?
I actually have I threw some wedding pictures in here
Okay,
just for fun.
all right.
Yeah. And in fact, I've got a little clip. So, yeah, good times.
Mike McFarland, American Medical Technologies, and really interested in how Microsoft is doing more integration with containers. Specifically, that's kind of my big question right now.
Nice.
My name is Jerry with American Medical Technologies also. Yeah, besides containerization, it's probably also Office 365 applications integration and probably even Teams too. We heard more and more about productivity with that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Damon Park, I work for Masimo Corporation. We manufacture medical devices, and we're about to launch a major SharePoint 2019 project. So I'm here to learn more about SharePoint and Office activities.
Excellent.
Hey, I'm Jeff Willinger. Good to see you guys, and thanks to Joel and Ryan, everyone else that puts these things on. I used to do this in Chicago all the time, so I appreciate when someone else does it. So thanks, Joel and Ryan and everybody else. I'm Jeff. A lot of people call me Jay Willie. I was not at Ignite, but I was definitely followed everything live streaming. What I'm probably most excited about is Cortex. I'm obsessed with knowledge sharing. I was actually speaking that same week at KM World, which is knowledge management world. Probably out of maybe 1,000-ish people there, knowledge managers from all over the world, actually. And the future finally is coming. Cortex is going to be a game changer because I'm obsessed with content strategy. And to your point about building intranets, it's all about content. It's all about how is it generated and how is it digested, so to speak. I'm also Teams. Joel, I don't know if you have this designation, if you went through the training, but I'm Teams Adoption and Engagement Certified. It was an MVP thing that I did last year. And just coming up with strategies to how we drive employees to check out what's on the internet and just keep them engaged in general. So, and I'm a free agent. I'm a free agent. You notice there's no company. For the first time in, I don't know, 20 years, I am 100%. I mean, I'm talking to a lot of different firms, but
good times.
That's a good transition. I'm Joy Muhlenbein, also a free agent, so we should come but that will hopefully be changing this week. Primarily SharePoint first person, but made the transition to Office 365 a while back, and then kind of got sucked back into SharePoint infrastructure and trying to get back to the cloud. I did not go to Ignite. I watched quite a bit of the live streaming. That was actually working correctly. And yeah, just hoping to get another take, another recap, and collect all the good bits and pieces that I missed.
Excellent.
My name's Tim Odell. I work at Herbalife. Basically, SharePoint, historically SharePoint person. I'm moving all into the whole productivity suite of Office 365. I also watch a lot of the Ignite, and I also read through the major announcements things. So there's a lot of interesting things there. So we discuss it all and learn what I don't learn when I was not here, I guess.
Cool, cool.
Thanks, Tim. Mike Jarvis. I work with Proficient, the Southern California business development person in the Microsoft Business Unit. So we sponsor this program, provide the facility, use our community reach out program through Joel nationally, and it's great to see returning folks. And I'm looking forward to learning more about the Ignite stuff from Ryan and Joel and others that attended.
Excellent, excellent.
Thanks, Jarvis.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Jarvis, for the lunch. Yep. And in fact, Proficient covered the parking and lunch. Yep. So.
Oh, that's a good point. We've got to get all your parking vouchers to me.
Yeah.
Because it takes me 20 minutes to validate them, so I'll be walking around. I'll start doing that now. Thank you, because I would have forgotten.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you'd all be screwed.
Speaking of which, if there's anybody who is interested in sponsoring the user group, we are looking for sponsors as well as speakers ongoing. So, other announcements before we get started.
Just along those lines, it really doesn't
Yeah.
cost that much to sponsor. I mean,
No.
I think you probably take just about anything. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
you get
yeah.
20
At
or
this
30
point,
people.
it's the thought is you will tell you how many people registered, and you try and calculate what that would look like in food, and you just go out and bring the food in. So there doesn't even have to be any major transactions that happen. It's just provide the food, and we'll give you a little bit of time to pitch your story.
You guys have got a voucher?
Yes.
Otherwise, I'm not covering your parking. This is your one window. Yeah. Sorry for the interruption. No, I love it. Thanks, Beck.
Yep. So some announcements before we get started. Really important one, since we're not going to have a meeting in December or January, and the reason we're not having a meeting in January is because there's a SharePoint Saturday in San Diego, and we would encourage everyone who is here to register for the Office 365 Saturday, January 25th. In San Diego. It's going to be at the Microsoft office. The call for speakers is still open, so if anybody's interested in speaking or volunteering, highly encourage you to reach out. Both Ryan and I are on the committee. Ryan's the main driver here, so definitely tap us on the shoulder if you want to get involved with the event. For the first time ever, we are going to have a Orange County Office 365 Saturday, April 25th. That will be at the Microsoft offices. We just barely reserved the space. Haven't even opened up anything yet, but we're in the process of forming a committee. So if you want to be on the organizing committee, if you want to speak,
Let us know.
Let us know, definitely.
Yeah, call for speakers should be coming out shortly. But yeah, we'll have the information and more details soon. But if you're interested, just let us know, and we'll make sure you get a message about it.
Yeah.
Can I just make a side note about that?
Yeah,
You know, these
please.
guys are always talking about call for speakers and this and that. And I'll never forget my first speaking gig ever was at a SharePoint Saturday in New York. And it changed my life forever. I was off to the races after that. So if you've never done any public speaking, you're like, oh, Jeff, guys earlier, I'm a free agent. Well, my early holiday gift is to you guys. If anyone is interested and you've always wanted to be a public speaker, I will work one-on-one with you for a little bit, not, for a little
Super
bit,
kind.
to help you craft your message. Because public speaking, not only will it change your personal life, but it will change your business life too. You put that on your LinkedIn profile, hey, I'm a speaker, blah, 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 and it opens doors.
Yeah.
So I will work hand in hand with you. I've spoken at over 100 conferences all over the world, and it all started with SharePoint Saturday New York about 15 years ago.
Yeah, and I would echo that and say, you may be thinking, oh, well, I'm not an MVP. Well, guess what? It doesn't start with an MVP. It starts with, hey, I've got a story I want to tell, or I figured out something cool and I just want to share my story.
Which is also how a lot of people get MVPs, because they are
Yes.
participating in these type of events. And that's
Absolutely.
if your community
That's the way
involvement
that it
is, if you
starts.
want to, if you ever have any aspirations of being an MVP, definitely need to get involved with the community. And these are good ways to getting started, because it's very low pressure. You're not like, okay, I have to really perform. It's just like, we're all here just to learn something. And so if you have something cool you've worked on, you've got people that are going to be interested in hearing what you have to say.
And it's super fun.
Absolutely, absolutely. Every single one of these events has a speaker dinner, has a share pint after it, kind of happy hour. So there's a lot of opportunities to network and get to know other people who are living all over the world who are going to be coming in for these events. So it's really good stuff. We do have a February meeting. We decided we want to make sure we get some of these things a little bit further out on the calendar. You're going to be hearing about Project Cortex. I plan to spend an hour on Project Cortex, February 26th. So we'll do a dedicated session just to Project Cortex, planning, preparing for Project Cortex. So let's start with a little bit of an interesting thing that happened at Ignite. This was a blast. So we had SharePoint and Teams got married. This wasn't me and some other person. This was actually SharePoint and Teams getting married. And there's absolutely some significance in why the community would put on an event like this. It has a lot to do with just the importance and kind of this major intersection. There's people who say, oh, we're trying to decide between Teams or SharePoint. And it's like, you don't get it. It's not Teams or SharePoint. It's, if you're doing Teams, it's Teams and SharePoint. It's when you start talking about Teams as an application platform, it's Teams plus SharePoint plus Flow plus Power Apps and on and on and on, Planner and so on. And so this idea of the products getting married is really, there were so much announcements around integration that were happening at Ignite. We felt like it was a really good opportunity to put together a wedding, and I got a little wedding video for you. And I can turn up my volume. So this is at the Share Pint. It happened on the first night. There were about 400 people who registered for the wedding, so it was quite a large event. There were something like, actually I think there were 400 drink tickets that were given out that night. One drink ticket per person. Yeah, over 500 people registered, that's what it was. So why is there a bagpiper? That's the wedding march. So what's happening right now is Teams is coming down the aisle to the bagpiper. Here comes Teams in a kilt. There's the OneDrive baby. And we've got a priest who is Microsoft 365. You could actually see Whiteboard and Flow and Skype are kind of in a line there. Might be hard to see, but the whole Office 365 suite of products is represented.
So Slack wasn't trying to crash the party, right?
No Slacks at this party.
Or no slackers.
There she goes, switching. This is the secret footage that Dave was doing with his phone. So we have live team streaming going on over there as well. Here comes the SharePoint bride. There's Skype.
Skype's trying to sneak through in there.
Yes. It's fairly quick. I'll narrate a bit for you. Teams and SharePoint are taking each other's APIs.
Hold on. Wait a second. SharePoint.
So Flo just steps in.
You have my name tattooed on you. I am all over the place inside of you.
You guys know John Levesque?
How can you do this?
Major Flo guy. So they're talking about the relationship between Flo and SharePoint and how they've been having all these hookups, and he's wondering why there's a marriage happening. So now Flo's okay with the wedding. The wedding will proceed. Oh, here comes Skype. So Flo just broke up with Teams on Valentine's Day this year. I don't know if you guys knew about that. So Skype is talking about how no one can resist the voice of Skype. So here comes a zombie infopath showed up. Oh no, it just bit Skype. So Skype has just been bit. So how's the infopath zombie still here? Power Apps to the rescue.
Anyone here seen Zombieland? We need a double tap.
So Flo and Power Apps just took out Infopath. Infopath zombie. And they're hauling him off.
You know, we've got a bagpiper. I think it's time for a little bit of Danny Boy, Infopath style.
A little bit of Danny Boy with the death of Infopath. So SharePoint and Teams are singing Danny Boy to Infopath. And we can skip some of that. A little shed a tear for Infopath.
Join me now, bowing your heads for memorial silence for our good friend who we have shared good times in bed. However, Infopath, we hope you stay dead, so we can focus on letting...
There's a little bit of echo, huh?
Yeah. Sure with the.
It's not coming out of these anyway.
Oh, it's coming from your computer. So did your teams get unmuted? Yeah, so you wonder if your teams got unmuted.
And that's going to keep going for a while.
It's nice if you mute your laptop.
Your machine's.
Anyway, we can. I think we're good on that. So they just said I do. Just mute here.
Yeah.
I'll turn that down anyway. Is that still going, huh?
Where should we go? It's just the delay for the
Delays.
live stream.
Alright. Alright, so Teams and SharePoint are what? Married. Now, I actually wrote a blog on this recently that I think why this is so important and why this is significant, even from a perspective of if you're a SharePoint admin or a SharePoint developer, at Ignite, I feel like you woke up and you're a SharePoint developer, you went and Ignite happened, now you're no longer a SharePoint developer. Like I really see it that clear, the contrast itself of that the Teams is that important to the story that all the rest of the Office 365 platform, so much of it is much more significant than it was prior. Like so much of what happened at Ignite really expands on this world. There was one slide in the announcements where it talks about, as an example, like, is SharePoint done? Is Teams taking over? No. In fact, look at all the stuff that's happening in this space. So when you start talking about announcements and things that are happening from taxonomies to sensitivity to integration with all the new stuff, the new Yammer, the new Teams stuff, the file cards, the multilingual, the home sites. There's so much that's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of where these things are going. SharePoint did announce 200 million monthly active users, so that was a significant milestone. Major SharePoint Ignite announcements. The first one was Project Cortex, which is a new product. There's no word on licensing or how it will fit with the rest of everything else, but it was announced in terms of here's this new knowledge center with topics and experts and generated AI, curated, it's topics generated by AI, but then curated by humans. It looks like that date is chopped off, but it was talking about, it's in private preview now. There's a public preview coming soon. Let's talk about Project Cortex for a minute. Anybody's thoughts? I can talk on and on. Like I've already written like a 10-page blog on Project Cortex.
Can you just give an overview of it?
Overview. So it starts, I would say, with the machine teaching. So if there's a structured and unstructured world, Project Cortex is this: how do we get our arms around your company data? So from a structured perspective, you may be using Effisoft or Kofax or something like that today to ingest structured documents in your organization. So like anything that was paper, and then you have humans that read it. It could be timesheets, it could be AP, AR, that kind of stuff. Data that's ingested and brought in, maybe even fax content. machine teaching basically says, we'll take all those PDFs or TIFF files and have it teach the AI how to understand your invoices and your content, such that it can extract that and push it in as columns or metadata on those documents, and essentially take what would be images and pull that in as content and enrich the documents themselves.
Is it machine teaching available now, or it's also?
It's in private preview. So that's one aspect of Project Cortex, is that structured world. Then there's this unstructured world, and in this unstructured world, it's, well, right now we use search, right? You go and you search for something to try and find, hopefully you can find a file. Well, with Project Cortex, the idea here is that AI can start to understand your documents, understand your content, and it can say, hey, I see this word. This looks like an important word. And if you have taxonomies, you have structure, it can start to say, this looks like a customer. Well, all right, yes, that is a customer. In fact, here's some information about that customer. Let's hook it up to something in your dynamic system, as an example. So it creates these topic cards of, here's code blue. Code blue is something in our company, and so whenever you see code blue, that we want to be able to link to those documents. So basically, there's a topic card that says, when you see code blue, here's some information about code blue. Here's the experts who know code blue, and essentially, it's the AI that's figuring out, hey, it looks like these people are the people who mostly are posting documents about this, or who are collaborating on these topics. So it can recommend people, experts, it can recommend content and documents and help you curate essentially the Wikipedia of your organization. So it's an informationpedia knowledge network. So today inside of Office 365 we have this people network, but with Project Cortex you basically have this knowledge graph, knowledge network. So like the graph that's very activity based and people based, now you've got one that's much more topic based that helps, and the idea is that it actually starts to learn and understand what's happening in the organization and can create these topics. And then it's not just in SharePoint, you could be in Teams and you're reading a post from somebody and it's like, oh, Project Blue, you mouse over it and here comes this topic card that you can click through, or you can scroll down and see people and things and resources and documents related to this. So fantastic for people who are trying to ramp up on stuff, but also from an organization that's just trying to say, we don't know what's in SharePoint, we don't know what's in our repositories, and it doesn't stop with SharePoint. It's like, we don't know what's in our G Suite or in Box, and your ability to add connectors that can then go and gather that content and help you build kind of an organizational corpus that is this knowledge network that lives inside of, so those pages live inside of SharePoint.
Is there going to be an interface to it, like a search tool? Or is it
Yeah, so it'll be integrated with search. It'll take advantage of the search capabilities of Office 365.
Is that what I read something about Delve as well? Where it's going to tie into Delve? Or Delve is something completely different?
I haven't heard the word Delve in a long time.
No, I think what it seems like is the way they demoed is that they're going to be more of a actual knowledge center type place.
Yeah,
that you
it's a
actually
knowledge
go
center.
to is that centralized
You
location.
don't have to go to Knowledge
with
Center.
content.
You can be in Word and mouse over something and right click it or whatever and see the topic cards and interact with it. It's going to expose itself across Office 365. Yeah.
There were a lot of questions during the Ignite if it's like Delve version 2, and the answer from Microsoft was always no. It's
not Delve.
Separate.
Yeah.
Separate.
Has nothing to do with Delve. You could say the Delve was an experiment. Cortex is a major investment.
Yeah, because it uses a lot of the AI functionality to discover and help you work with the content.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming it's like using like cognitive services. with
Absolutely.
that. So do you have to pay for those, or is that already included with your?
No licensing conversations yet. No idea. If I knew, I couldn't tell you. Yeah. Anyway, Cortex is a big one. Definitely, like when you talk about content services, it's a major investment. Microsoft is seeking organizations who are looking to want to get their hands on it. So there is an opportunity to get in the private preview, and there are links if people are looking for those.
A few years ago, there was this thing called the semantic web. Is this sort of a continuation of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you could say it's a re-envisioned. If you know Naomi Moneypenny, she has something like 30 AI patents, or did a few years ago. I don't know how many she has now. But she joined Microsoft, spent a bunch of time helping the search team, and then actually built this team that is Project Cortex. It is something it's new. It's a new product team. We don't have to think of this as a SharePoint feature. This is a full-on new space. Absolutely. That takes on structured and unstructured. Kind of reinvents what ECM takes traditional ECM stuff and then just puts it on its head and says, let's take advantage of the latest AI and push that way.
You want Jeff up front?
Yeah, well, no, it's up to him. The multilingual capabilities. So they have spent a bunch of time on the multilingual aspects. And we don't have time to go through every single line here. What I'd prefer is that people look at the list and say, hey, this is interesting. Like as an example, we talked about max file size. So there's a 50 gigabyte max file size for SharePoint, 100 gigabyte for OneDrive, 2 million site collections in a tenant. So definitely some new updated limits.
What was the limit per file?
50 gigabyte for SharePoint, 100 gigabyte for OneDrive per file.
Wait, there's a difference between the two.
I don't know.
It's the same SharePoint.
Yeah. It's interesting.
I almost wonder if part of it is the fact that OneDrive has unlimited storage and team sites, SharePoint sites do not.
Yeah,
So I'm
companies
wondering
pay.
I'm wondering if they're trying to prevent
Encourage
people
you
from
to not.
getting SharePoint sites that are out of control. That now, okay, you hit your quota, and then you got to deal with space.
If people complain about the 50 gig limit, things may change. I don't know.
Or can you make this slide deck available?
Yeah. So in fact, these are not my slides. There are 3 different people that that put these together, who got them from 100 people at Ignite.
I just tweeted this slide because I have like a little. Actually, are you going to do the Yammer thing today too, or no?
Yeah. There's a slide for Yammer. So this is 30 slides, by the way.
So we get popping.
Yeah. There's the intelligent intranet stuff, so you get the multilingual publishing. There's hubs of hubs, associated hubs now, available early next year. Image resizing. Oh, diff was one I saw, like your ability to diff not just Office files, but all file types. So that's big. In fact, when you talk about massive file sizes, that's really important because now you can just make incremental changes to things and be able to just get the diff uploaded. Make a classic site a calm site. Extract a site to a site script for like site designs. Global tenant navigation.
Site and then just export the script and then just reuse that script.
Yeah.
When's that available?
Available soon is what. So the way that this one for the intelligent intranet was divided up is you've got the available soon, early next year, and top of mind.
So does that kind of like eliminate the point of using like the PnP provisioning aspect of it?
No. I would say that it probably is coming from those worlds. Like the site scripts and site designs are things that they want you to use. And this idea of, well, let me start with a site and then be able to build a script out of it. What it does is encourage people to learn how to do scripting. It's that idea of, here's a database. Show me the SQL script that would have built that database. And kind of reverse engineer it. Same kind of deal.
Correct, but now with like these newer features where you have these capabilities, can you just like not use the PNP provisioning where they call it like?
Not sure. No idea. I'm not much of a developer either, so I don't know if you want to speak to that, Alex, or if my audience. Okay. Yeah.
The question.
So you can repeat the question.
The question was around, and can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
The question was around the information, the changes that are being made to site design, site scripts, and this idea of extracting a site to a site script. Does this reduce the need for reliance on PNP?
Kind of yes and kind of no, because PNP is mostly allow you to create a, let's say, website that is hosted on Azure and do some kind of self-provisioning stuff. Site designs and site scripts are more about scripting and allowing users to select templates directly from out-of-the-box UI. So it mostly depends on your needs. But yeah, in some points, yeah, you can extract all the information from existing site, make it a site script, create a site design based on that, and allow your users to create other sites based on the same template, let's say.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There is a new lookbook for SharePoint, lookbook.microsoft.com. There's an updated Yammer Conversations web part, news filtering. Lot of lists.
Just before we move on.
Yeah.
Calendars in SharePoint. As far as I know, they're
They
still
don't-
in the classic experience. They're touching on it here. That's all they
Yeah,
mentioned.
it's top of mind, and I do think the calendar is a big one. It's huge.
Doesn't everybody use a calendar?
Yeah. And I think some of this is, if SharePoint's going to touch the calendar, they better be talking to Teams, because we need a really good Teams integrated SharePoint calendar. Who owns it? How it becomes the team calendar, but also handles all the eventing aspects. I think that's probably why we don't want just another calendar. We want them to relook at it. So I think it's going to be something bigger than that.
Just because we haven't mentioned it yet, Outlook is still in this conversation, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, actually, the last SharePoint conference, I don't remember the guy's name, but he actually said that the reason that they took that calendar view away is because that's Exchange's job. That's what Outlook does well. So let Outlook do what it's supposed to do, which didn't really jive with me.
No.
It sounds like not with other people either. But
Yeah.
then I heard the opposite thing said later, so I'm
Yeah.
a little confused
And
what they're doing.
the way I look at it as well is, more and more we're using the Teams calendar. We have kind of our personal calendar in Outlook, and then we have the Teams calendar for our team. But the way that the SharePoint calendar was used was kind of a different purposes than even we see in Teams. So it was a lot of how we want to visualize our data in a calendar view, and beyond. But modernizing the calendar is, I don't know if it's mentioned here, but that is one of the things they've been working on. Creating, basically taking all those other pages that are classic and making modern pages of various classic features. So I would recommend that this blog post here. So if anybody's looking for this deck, I will definitely share this. But like I said, this isn't necessarily mine, but it's 3 others who got it from 100+ speakers. So, Biz apps. Anything come top of mind for anybody that wants to talk about things?
We talked about the SharePoint provisioning services. Didn't I?
Yeah, from a scripting perspective, yes.
Yeah, there's a new service that they've launched.
So they combined provisioning service with the SharePoint lookbook. So basically, I don't know if it's already G8 or no. If you go to lookbook website for SharePoint, you can select the theme from there, like specific site, and provision new site collection right in your tenant right from there.
So basically, if you're going through the lookbook and you're like, oh, I really like this one, you can create a site based on what you see. And then the idea as well is then you could take that site, reverse engineer it to create a script, hook it up to your provisioning so that when you create sites, they look like that.
The only thing I think
With your
you
site
used to
designs.
have to be a global admin to do that. Not sure if that's still the case.
Do you know anything about the requirements in terms of provisioning or setting up the site designs?
Yeah, you definitely should be a SharePoint tenant admin. I don't know if you need to be like global admin. I'm not sure about that.
I tried to do it in a different tenant about 6 months ago, and I got an error that you have to be a global admin to do that.
Yeah, I don't think that's changed because you have to authenticate to like the app in the background
Yeah.
because it creates a connection to
Yep.
your tenant. So it most likely.
Because it's out hitting Azure or something.
Yeah, it's in the Azure Enterprise application
Yep.
aspect.
Yeah. More and more flow and forms integration as well.
Any idea what they mean by responsive custom forms?
No.
Custom form that's responsive?
They're thinking.
Well, that would be for the.
So when they say top of mind as well, this means there's nothing that they showed. But when you say what are they thinking about, one of the things with forms today, if you use forms, it's very much you get what you get when you use their wizard to create your form. So maybe the word custom is actually the key word, not the fact that it's responsive, because forms today is responsive.
I think maybe it's talking about the out-of-the-box one, because the out-of-the-box monitoring one, you can't make like a responsive one unless it's a Power App. So maybe they're talking about the out-of-the-box ones where you can do like, I don't know, like the lists and then
Do some adjustments.
And it's probably the SharePoint
Yeah.
form as well. The
That
SharePoint
makes
form isn't necessarily fully responsive.
I just jumped to Power Apps immediately, so I was like, doesn't it do that?
Right, right.
Unless it's talking about the dynamic one, where you can actually do it, where you have like additional canvases. So that's rolling out, but I think that was announced last year at the SharePoint
Yeah.
conference. So either one, I don't know.
Integrate flow and custom forms experiences with teams. Yeah, I can see that as an investment as well. So let's talk about the flow being called Power Automate now. I think the first thing to understand is that inside of Power Automate, which is the new name for the product, is that you create flows. So the way that we talk about flows doesn't necessarily have to change too much. It's more when you're talking about the product that generates or creates flows. That's Power Automate. Why would they do such a thing? It's the marketing team.
Well, I think,
trying to make it aligned with the Power Platform.
yeah, I think part of it as well is they've also, somebody was explaining to me, they're also adding in more things into Flow that don't quite fit with the Flow's nomenclature. So they said, okay, more automate. 'Cause like one of the things that I saw that they announced was like the whole like UI flows.
Yeah.
So that way
Yeah.
you can actually automate applications that don't have APIs to be automated. So
the RPA.
Yeah.
It's basically your ability to automate clicking of UI.
Yeah.
And being able to generate scripts that do that. And Excel had some features as well around that. Your ability to kind of automate things that typically are human driven. Being able to generate scripts out of Office that click things or click UI. Yeah, it's interesting. Anything else? There were a number of things around OneDrive. You understand Mover or Mover?
Mover.
I saw a different spelling too. Anyway, Mover was acquired by Microsoft. They bought them both?
Yes.
Okay, that's good to clarify. Anyway, so you basically, as part of Fast Track now, you can get a copy of Mover if you're trying to work on migrating your data into OneDrive. And even the Mover guys will help. So there's, I would say if you're in the space of migration or looking to do migrations, it's important to kind of revisit the Fast Track program because there's probably a few things that have changed.
But also the interesting thing about the whole Mover thing is you can use it and migrate things out of Dropbox, Box, G Drive, all that sort of stuff for free.
Yeah.
It's just.
And now it's and Mover is all web-based UI.
So yeah, their
no
agents are all in the cloud, so you don't have no installs required or.
Just log in, do a couple
like
of things.
replacing the SharePoint migration tool?
No.
Or?
It's not about share. This is a OneDrive.
But this is it
I use
can move to SharePoint.
Migration tool to migrate to OneDrive for my whole company. So I was just wondering if it's
The way they've placed it is the SharePoint migration tool is still going to be there, still going to do what it does. But that's more designed from on-prem scenarios to another SharePoint server, for example, and to the cloud. Where this one is more like SaaS to SaaS because you got Dropbox and Box and all these other things that are cloud anyway. So it makes it easy for them to say, okay, pick up from one to move to the other.
So the conversations, there's a new files experience in Teams, the file sharing experience in Teams. There's some like URL shortening type stuff that happens. The app mention in Office. Yeah, the request files is new as well, or that was a top of mind item. Blocking non-Office files, because now you can now block Office files, but your ability to block non-Office files. All right, Power Platform.
Sorry, you're just reading down the list and then stopped at recommended view. What exactly does that mean? What are they going for? A recommended view on web?
It shows you recommended documents for you. So it's just like a graph thing.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
Just,
Doesn't
yeah,
it do that already in like when you set up a meeting?
Not in
it'll tell you
OneDrive.
download? Oh, okay.
I think there may be some preview in OneDrive, but
I see,
it
I
wasn't
see.
doing it in OneDrive.
Okay.
Yeah, and you'll find more of those recommended views all over the place.
Yeah,
They're
I
adding
didn't
a
know if
bunch
it
of
was
those.
something that they added on to that because I found it incredibly helpful when there's shared files
Mhm.
already.
Yeah, and there's more of those interfaces. So the recommended view on the web, I think, is the new one, where you can get recommended in the
I
UI.
keep having issues with my users with those recommended views because they claim, oh, everybody can see my files. No, it's just if you only have access to those files, you will see, and it's different for every single user.
Yeah,
That was
right.
the thing with Dell that
Yeah.
brought those types of.
It's freaking out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Power Apps is now Power Apps. I don't know if you saw that. So they added a space. The UI flows, which you're referring to, is it's the new RPA, robotic process automation capabilities for recording and replaying. You can share your Canvas Power Apps with guests, so people outside your organization. I know that Anonymous was something that people were definitely asking for.
But the thing is, as well,
With guests.
the guests do still need a license.
Oh.
I think it's one of the things they're saying. Yeah, you can share with them, but yeah, they still need a license to be able to access things. Otherwise, okay, you can create an application,
But can they-
share it with the world, and
can they use their own license, or it's?
That I am not sure on.
Right. Is it a license on your
Yeah.
tenant or on just in
Right.
general?
That's interesting. More Power Apps and Teams integration. You can have publish your Power App as a Teams app. That's a big one. In fact, I saw some blog posts around that. Really cool stuff. Pinning your Teams app to the left rail, and doing triggers and actions for Power Automate. So basically, more integration with your flows. Yeah, so the stuff around Project Cortex starts with search connectors and search extensibility. They're increasing the term set to 1 million items, so we're really scaling that out. So we talked a little about those topic cards and pages. Machine teaching with smart ingestion of PDFs with better OCR. The new content center or knowledge center. And that idea of smart document creation and generation. So basically they're making Office smarter and smarter as well. So as it understands your documents, they can get smarter at creating content as well. So being able to help, if you're doing the same thing over and over again, I think there's some real innovation there that could be really powerful. Because the document creation thing really hasn't changed much over time, but that's an area they're looking at. So the files experience in Teams, they're with SharePoint content, they're basically making it much more of a SharePoint experience. So if you've done stuff to your SharePoint UI or done to the visualizing experience, it comes through into Teams. Updates to external sharing. The Teams and Outlook, that ability to kind of sharing in those. Sharing the link that also blocks download, adding the request file feature, linking to a specific PowerPoint slide. Syncing across organizations. I didn't see that. Does anybody know what? Anybody see that?
Crosswork sync we've got already.
Sync across organizations. Maybe it's further, or is it just?
Maybe it's just saying that
it's
it's
new.
come out.
It's new. It exists.
It's
now.
since SPC.
Right. Popular around me. New for admins, the sharing reports. So there is much more of the governance type stuff where you can see what's happening in a site or see what has been shared by someone or some on a site.
Yeah, that one was kind of interesting because when they demoed it at the SharePoint conference, they had a little icon that was right on their OneDrive homepage, but now they kind of demoed it and you have to go into like the site administration of OneDrive and then see the report, which is
A little hokey, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you can still. They've also changed in the UI. You can now see which files have been shared just by a column. There's a status column on the files, on items themselves, so you can see, okay, this file is being shared, and then you can get to see who accessed that file. But yeah, as an owner, to be able to say, hey, I want to see everything in the site, it makes sense to transition that to there. So just individually, it's like, okay, that's in the one location.
Right.
Yeah, the only concern was because a lot of people don't know how to go to the administration page, and then they can see all the like site features and start enabling all these different site features. That's kind of interesting.
Trying to
When I
avoid
saw
those
it in the
things.
SPC, it was pretty nice because it was just a little icon
Right
that
there.
was next to the search or the sort, and it just exported
Sure, sure. Dev platform.
They, you don't know they're gonna be, I saw something about, that came out of there about integrating teams in Yammer.
Yeah, yeah. I do have a slide on Yammer coming up.
I just wanna know what that would look like, I guess.
Well, it's
A lot of people don't know, including myself, not really clear on when to use Yammer chat versus.
Oh, Yammer was finally dead.
That's old news.
That's zombie.
It's the year of Yammer.
Yeah, it's the year of Yammer.
Welcome to it, yes.
Yeah, Yammer's been it's like they haven't touched Yammer's UI for the most part since they bought it. It's getting new UI. Yeah.
Allegedly first resource from Microsoft is saying.
Nope.
Not in 2020.
Definitely not.
Not now. Microsoft is actively investing in adding features and integrations with Yammer.
Yeah, Yammer it hit the keynote, I think, even like Yammer actually is a thing.
It's still getting
It's
a lot
an
of
investment.
still getting a lot of love from Microsoft's dev teams, which tells me it's probably not slated for
Let's skip to
execution
Yammer.
anytime soon.
Since we're talking about Yammer. There we go. New Yammer. New UX. Web and mobile fluent design. Fluent is important. Favoriting communities. People cards. Search notifications. So basically, conversations come from Yammer and Teams. The leadership videos. Videos was a really big investment. They've been doing a lot with videos. Modern publishing features. Most recently used files. Around questions and polls, your ability to mark things as answers.
It's already in Yammer.
Yeah.
It's improving now.
Yeah, the polls, the praise, the new post treatments of.
Everything is gonna look really good, almost like,
Yeah.
I'll call it Jive Junior.
Interesting. So that's the other thing is basically Yammer becomes a tab in Teams. So your ability to use Yammer.
Level of abstraction away from what I'm talking about.
Well, it's like if you're in Teams, it's right there, boom, one click. So your basically your org-wide conversations is it's Yammer, but it's basically in
You know,
Teams.
just like some companies, they're doing everything in that Slack thing, everything. So Microsoft is saying, hey, you know what? You're going to be able to do the exact same stuff in Teams, and it's going to be better.
Speaking of Yammer and Slack and Teams, so 4 months ago, Teams and Slack were fairly neck and neck. Teams was 13 million active daily users. Slack announced its data at 12 million users per day. So they were almost neck and neck. Teams basically edged ahead. In the last 4 months, it grew by 50%. So now Teams, just announced this week, is 20 million. So it's almost now double the amount of users, daily users, than Slack. So it's
Yeah, Teams is only growing because companies that I know of, I would say maybe a third to a half tops have Teams rolled out. The others, it's in the roadmap, but it's not there yet.
yeah. So if we take the SharePoint data as 200 million, and that's monthly active users, and then we say the Teams is at 20 million, that's 10%. So yeah, we're not saying that it's everywhere yet, but it is a major investment. It's the fastest growing product in Microsoft history, and from a Microsoft perspective, there's nothing like in terms of Satya's radar, the things he cares a lot about. Like Teams is one of those top 3 things.
And is Slack staying stagnant or is it going down?
No, it grew 43% last year.
Okay.
But Teams grew 50% in the last 4 months. So it's like if you're looking at the growth, it's just Teams is just going crazy.
But if you own Slack stock, you lost like 50%.
Yeah, it did drop 15% last week.
But there's no talk of like org-wide functionality for teams or something.
There is.
Yeah,
In fact, there's org-wide is one of the features there. But in terms of maximum number of users, it's 5,000.
But then how do
in a
we,
team.
how do we distinct Yammer from teams?
So new Yammer.
Was like, why not just increase that number for certain teams so that you can use it organization-wide? And then have all of the functionality that you get in Yammer available for all the teams.
So if you've spent a lot of time in both tools, you'd notice that things scroll off super fast in Teams. Like a week could go by and it's so gone. With Yammer, stuff is much more sticky and it sticks around a lot better, and it's much more retrievable from a search perspective. Those conversations definitely persist. There's a lot better persistence in Yammer. And those ability to have your kind of social, I don't know who these people are groups, those things work better on the Yammer side, that outer loop.
It's just kind of like a different type of SharePoint site too, right? Like, because one of them is primarily for, here's a corporate communication that is primarily sending information out, and
Yep.
the interaction, if you want to call it that, would be possibly some feedback or comments about that announcement. So that's, I would expect to have this that you're talking about, as opposed to like, hey, we're working on this project and I'm working on this, what are you working on? There's
Well, it's a lot of the I don't know who to ask this to, so I'm going to post it in Yammer because I don't know who's going to respond to it. In Teams, I know who my teams are.
Okay.
It's like much more open, and I just want to say the same thing. When you don't know who knows that information, you go to Yammer. On Teams, you usually it mentions somebody. You can actually do that on Yammer too, but you just direct it to somebody or a very specific group. On Yammer, you just blast it out. Hey, I need this. Who knows that? And it's like a little bit more open, and I think it's if you're not using documents, planner, and just discussions, Yammer is much better. It's just much better for just like a discussion board.
And I think when you start talking about topic-based content, even if we go back to Cortex even for a second, imagine there's the Project Blue engineering team, right? They're a team. They're in teams. But if we say people who are interested in Project Blue who want to know what's being announced, that would be more like a Yammer group or a Yammer conversation, because that way the engineering team can push whatever, announcements and whatever into that. But then the community, there can be a community around that topic. And that topic and that community can actually exist on that topic card as well. So it'd be teams associated with it, but also communities are associated with it. And I think that's another way to kind of articulate that Yammers are more communities and then teams are more teams.
And you can connect all of them together. You can export it to SharePoint, you can export it to Yammer, through Teams now.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of this, the Yammer roadmap, the new Yammer experience, H1, so first half of 2020, there's a full-on new UI for Yammer. The live events and video, next generation stuff is also Q1 2020. New compliance stuff is Q4. There's new integration with Yammer into SharePoint with Q1. The Yammer app for Teams is Q1 2020. Yammer in Outlook, which is interesting, Q1 of 2020. So definitely a lot of Yammer work that's been happening. I'd say fairly significant investments. It's got some new legs. Let's talk about Teams. I have one really good Teams slide that I like. A lot of announcements at Ignite around Teams. Private channels was launched, availability at Ignite. So it's still working its way out. there's definitely some things to be aware of in relation to when you create a private channel. It's a separate site collection per channel.
And by the way, can you see those site collections in the SharePoint Admin Center? Because I couldn't find those. Just not
No,
sure
you
how.
can't.
No, that's what I thought. So how can I manage it? So who is creating those? And because I had one user who created one, deleted one, then one created one again, and he got an error because I guess there's a site collection that exists with that name, and I don't know how to find it. And
I don't have.
So
any
currently it's only scripting, only PowerShell.
Okay. All right.
When in doubt, use PowerShell.
Yep. I know
Um,
there's like a special template for this, so I guess I can run a PowerShell script, show me all of the sites with that template, and then it will probably show it.
Yes, that's correct. It's something like channel site or something, the name of the template. I don't remember correctly.
So a few of the roadmap items for Teams, the call capabilities like emergency calls, call queuing, admin controls, call delegation are on the roadmap end of 2020. Share an email to Teams, move conversation to Teams, vice versa of a Teams chat to Outlook and vice versa, early 2020. Show tasks from planners to do Outlook and Teams channels, like this idea of consolidated tasks inside of Teams, which I think is super cool.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's a good one. The whiteboard, so whiteboard as a, yeah.
Sorry, on that task point, is there anything with Azure DevOps that goes to that as well? Or is that just a completely different ecosystem that has it?
I've not heard of anything that was going to integrate it natively, but I'm pretty sure there are APIs you could probably go pull them. But yeah, I think this integration, there's kind of pulling in things that are Office 365, and DevOps is kind of developer focused, not quite so business focused.
Yeah.
Would be cool though. I'm not gonna deny that one, but
Everything in place.
that would be cool.
So there's this new whiteboard integration. So there's like meeting rooms and having meetings and then being able to have a whiteboard, or being able to take the new Surface technology and being able to write on a whiteboard. The whiteboard itself being in Teams where everybody can actually see the whiteboard.
And that semi-transparent experience.
Yeah, exactly. You're walking in front of the camera and it can actually see through you at the whiteboard. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, they showed off some of that at Ignite as well.
There was a cool announcement, I don't know if it was at Ignite, but I know there was a post about it that you can now, like, it's going to be kind of like unified, so you can connect to Zoom meetings via Teams, and if you have like web apps and stuff like that. So that was really interesting, because we have Zoom, and we didn't want to go purchase all these team meeting equipment, but now we can just use it all on the same platform.
Yeah, and so and I think the way I understood it was, users or teams and meeting rooms, you go from meeting to meeting to meeting, and some of them are Zoom, some of them are WebEx, some of them are Teams. And the meeting room itself, its ability to handle all those things. Basically, Microsoft's working with Cisco and Zoom around interop, especially from a perspective of the web interface. So your ability to have meeting rooms that can handle different types of rooms. So that's a, call it a consortium, call it a, collaboration between meeting room technologies. And that was, they were just talking about how they're investing in that. But basically the first one they kind of hinted to was the web interface, like the web. Polls and surveys in Teams. Sounds like it's an end of 2019 thing. Multitasking. Oh, the pop-out windows, that was a big one. Your ability to kind of have chat, you can chat with multiple people. Instead of having to go back and forth between people and chats, you could actually have pop-out windows. And even with the team itself, you can actually have a meeting and be able to be chatting with somebody else without having to, it was really wacky from the interface.
You can change context. You can have a really open workspace and switch to the other and change a chat. Because I noticed that launching.
Well, if you, especially cross-tenant, it logs you out. But yeah, your ability to kind of navigate in Teams if you're in a meeting has been a big pain.
So, sort of on this thread, I had somebody tell me the other day he doesn't like using Teams versus emails for things that he can't act on right then. So, you know, having a direct message chat is great for when he's at his computer and can take care of whatever the note is right away. But email is great because you can mark something as unread and come back to it later. Whereas in Teams, it's somewhere in that chat history and you have to either jot it down right away that, hey, I need to follow up on this. Does anybody have a solution for that?
You can also make it unread or save it for later.
A single message or the whole thread at that point?
I think this is the message.
Oh,
Yeah, I think the message itself. I remember having the same problem, and because you're always referencing something that gets buried in the chat.
Right.
But I think you can
Yeah, there's
favorite it.
on the dot
Just
dot
save
dot menu, there's a thing called mark as unread.
Yeah, and there's a save this message, and then
Oh, okay.
you have to go to your user and click on that where you have settings and saved messages, and you have everything there.
And with these consolidated tasks, I can imagine throw this into my tasks. You know?
That's exactly what you're looking for.
Oh, yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I love using activity feed. It's great because even if you read it, you can just go through it and you click and it just immediately points you to those messages. And I think it keeps for like 2 weeks.
Okay.
You know, so it's a great, and now you can filter in so many different ways, unread, mention.
Yeah. The
different
big
reply.
problem that we have is that everybody will like or heart or whatever a message and then it pops in as an activity. So that thread just fills up so quickly with, you know, I wrote a message and instead of saying,
Reactions.
got it, they just react with a thumbs up every time. If I'm
But I think
understanding.
it's a good thing, right? That they just do thumbs up instead of replying.
Yes, as long as it
Reply
doesn't
all.
spam the
Activity.
the activity.
Yeah, but then you go to filter it and you just
Oh, I see what
just
you're
go to
saying.
add mentions where somebody mentions you or your channel or your team,
Right.
and then you act on
That's a
those.
great answer. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, so the pop-out thing, the pinned channels for navigation, so you can pinning channels. Available in chat or channel conversations. Better meetings, so yeah, defined attendee presenter controls. Live captions was a big one. So your ability to kind of, you're speaking and it's actually giving you subtitles right underneath. That's starting with English. Management of Teams rooms. There's actually a service they actually talked about that Microsoft would be having this ability to kind of have a health dashboard of meeting rooms and conference rooms, so that you can actually know if the equipment in the room is working and if there's health issues essentially with the conference room. So there was a service offering related to that they were talking about. SMS sign-in for first-line worker, early 2020. Virtual consults. It's like healthcare, job interviews, Power Apps integration, app to Teams, users pinning to left rail, new app catalog, app policies. Safe links in Teams, there's some security stuff as well. There's a lot of AIP integration now with your ability to block credit cards and chats and things like that. Notifying your warnings and blocks and so on right inside Teams.
What if I'm communicating with the Afghan prince?
I thought it was a Nigerian prince.
That's right, it was Nigerian.
Do you guys know, they announced like the Presence API for Teams, like unified Presence API?
I remember some Presence conversations, but I don't remember API.
Does Teams have a screen clipper? Like you can just screen and paste something right to a team. You seen that?
I know Windows has it built
Yeah,
in.
yeah, there's a new
Clipper,
snip.
like OneNote's got a clipper, that'd be really.
That's a great idea.
They need that in there, because I'm always like, all of a sudden, my screen is dropping right in.
Right.
I use Snagit, but that would be nice to have it built in.
Yeah, it needs to be built in. Yeah, you gotta use another third-party tool, that's kind of.
But I think what he
There is a
mentioned
new
was
Windows one,
The
yeah.
the OneNote became the Windows one.
Yep.
And you can just, it's control Windows.
It's built into Windows 10. Yeah, it's the Windows Control S.
Yeah.
Okay, like the
Shift S. Yeah.
Windows Shift S?
No, it's man, I just do it all the time. I don't even remember what it is.
Windows.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, Windows Shift S.
But it was also great if you were like screen sharing with somebody to put an arrow on the screen. Hey, you have to click here, or just draw on the screen.
Well, it seems like it's
Oh,
trying to do it.
you can do it in the meeting, I think, Teams.
Yeah, Teams meeting you can request control.
No, but you can just like draw on the screen. So this is what you're.
This is where you need to be focusing.
That would actually be. I would totally use that all the time.
I hate to say it, but Slack has it, and it's a pretty cool feature. I use it with people like, whoa, how'd you do that? It's just part of a Slack call.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's cool.
And can I
Yeah.
add one more
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah.
Anyone was on the Office 365 Champions call this morning? Are you? So you probably heard about it. I saw that for the first time at your Teams session that you organized here, the Champions program on Microsoft. They built their own app for Teams with badges and some other cool stuff for Teams. They're actually releasing into the public in January. So I think it's a really nice adoption tool that you can use. So they announced it today, this morning on that call. And by the way, if you're not on that call and you're interested in Teams, I highly recommend. It's like once a month, ton of cool features they announced. So in January they're releasing it to the public. So
That's great. There's something called Teams Advisor, which is an accelerator as well for people who are deploying Teams or people who are using Teams and they want to know statistics and analysis around who's doing what and how it's being adopted. And this Teams Advisor basically integrates with, has a bunch of templates and content around Power BI and Planner around tracking deployment. I know we skipped a few things. So in relation to migration, here's a few different things. Self-service migration from Box, Dropbox, Google Drive.
That's the mover stuff.
SharePoint migration tool. Migration Manager. Yeah, there's a file share migration tool that's just recently GA'd. Cloud migrations. Yeah. Replace root site. Some people have been waiting for that one.
For those of us with a classic root site, you want to go with modern?
Yeah.
But the modern communication is now a default, right? If you have a new tenant.
All new tenants get the communication site, but those of us that have been around a little longer
have the old one.
have the old, and this was the supported way of getting one put there.
Yeah. Change site URL. Bulk
Hallelujah.
operations. Updated settings page. So now you get a new modern page. Customizable collapsible left nav. Modern dashboard with customizable cards. New term store admin. New content type gallery. I think a lot of these are supporting the new Cortex. Analytics, so you can see who's using what terms and what content types are being used. A bunch of analytics work that's happening now too.
Does the analytics also just does it go against just like the what's it called, the enterprise keyword one? Instead of like your preset,
your term store.
term set.
Yeah.
I know they get integrated into there, but
But there's a lot of refresh UI that's going to be happening as well. Yammer compliance, e-discovery, data governance, search.
Search.
Yeah. So a number of major things. New search locations. So basically, a lot of things they promised. are now planned for this second half of 2019. So things that they've been promising for quite a while. So things around like Windows, the Office web. So we'll find out what version of Office or Windows it'll be.
Last time when I talked to Ignite last year, they said, yeah, as long as you need, only thing you really need is 1809.
Oh, good.
But, or was it 79? Anyway, we'll see what it actually comes, when it actually gets
Yeah.
released, what it ends up being.
Edge updated, so there's some integration there with the Bing search stuff. Spelling suggestions in search, improve people search relevancy, search scoping controls in modern UI, semantic search, acronyms, floor plans, those who've been waiting to get people with being able to have where they're located.
Oh yes, the office
Mhm.
location.
Yeah.
Do you have to like upload some type of
CAD.
CAD
Yeah.
file? Okay.
Then the content connectors, you get the file share one is in public preview, the ServiceNow one's in public preview, SQL database one, intranet, MediaWiki, Azure Data Lake, and those are all in public preview. And they're actually working with BA Insight behind the scenes. They actually announced that in the keynote around some other third-party connectors they're doing, which are in public preview. Manage connectors in search in Admin Center is in private preview. So a lot of stuff going on with connectors and managing search. And a bunch of API work around search as well, like your custom results page. And they're even gonna actually allow you to be able to update your search results pages that are classic or even classic sites to be able to support the modern search experience. First half of 20, you got new search for Teams. Who knows what search? That's cool. Topic-based search, which obviously is in private preview. New content, things like video search across SharePoint, OneDrive, Stream. Anybody who's still using, what's it called, Office 365 Video, there's now migration to Stream. So like that's available as well.
So what's the who knows what search? Is that AI driven? What is that work?
Semantic search.
It's, you put on your profile what you know certain things about, and then they can search across the organization. Tell me somebody that knows something about SharePoint. Tell me somebody that knows something about Power Automate. It's they can actually go out and find an actual resource to.
It's like expertise search
Yeah.
based on topics. But it probably does depend on people filling that in the
Yeah,
near term.
When Jeff demoed, they actually said, okay, the demos actually showed you have to go put stuff in on your profile.
Can you map it to like a Azure Active Directory attribute?
They just pulled it from the profile, so who knows?
Yeah. Makes me think as well, once you get Cortex working, then you get the next level of, intelligent expertise search. So Stream, you get all the live events, interactive video with polls and quizzes, the Power App integration, search-driven web parts, default sort order on channel, the video migration, which we talked about, 6 additional languages for transcript, trimming videos, replacing videos, video recycle bin, and they're working on, in development, video from mobile. That was actually demoed, that was kind of cool. And they even have these editing video type capabilities. Voice enhancement, that was a really cool one, if you hadn't seen that one, where there's a truck in the background of the guy who's on a meeting in Teams, and it's the beep, 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 and the loud noise, and they were able to just turn all that off. That was super cool. The kind of the voice enhancements.
The one feature that we would like to see in Stream is to be able to attach documents to a video. So we use it for training, and sometimes like add a PowerPoint or PDF, somehow link to it. And
I think
right
I
now
thought this way you could do that.
I do it manually on SharePoint now.
Oh.
Video and
Now you could build a Power App that's your whole training
Yeah,
experience.
that's true.
That's a good point.
Yeah, by the way, we're investing in the HoloLenses as well for training
Oh, nice.
technicians. So
Very cool.
They have that cool training module as well.
Very nice. Video viewership analytics. The search integration, I think we've all been waiting for the videos to start popping up in search for stream. More admin governance features like resetting the company policy acceptance language, persistent company policy in footer, and search private videos in stream admin. Public REST APIs, live event polls, retirement of Office 365 video. Yeah. So stop me if there's something you see here. Here's the groups stuff. I would call out labels have been reinvented. There's these new sensitivity labels that if you have been doing labels or you have invested in labels, it's time to revisit labels. Like the sensitivity labels work that they've done recently is a new flavor of it. Like it's if you've already done it, you actually have to update your labels and remap them. Yeah. So there's a really good article on the new sensitivity labels. And what's great is they're much more broad. So instead of just being a SharePoint thing or just being an Azure thing, now it goes across Teams and Yammer and OneDrive and SharePoint. It's like fits much more across things. And your ability to say, this team is this sensitivity, like this is a team that's sensitive of top secret or however you want to call it, classified, your ability to be able to say that about your team, and then it be able to go across all of the things that are of that group or of that team. So the labels are much more broad, and group classification, information protection labels, that stuff's important. If anybody's doing compliance types things.
What is that native mode for Yammer?
Native mode. Yammer itself has kind of lived outside the family. It's kind of been in its own world. And so now, I'm making a little bit of an assumption, but when I think of native mode for Yammer, it makes me think that it's actually becoming much more native to groups.
When you create a Yammer group, it automatically creates a
group.
group.
Okay, I was like, okay, sorry.
Where Yammer groups used to be something different. Yeah. Now it's much more integrated.
Did I see OneNote? Oh,
Yeah, go for it.
No, I'm just curious. What are they?
I didn't go to this session.
Oh, okay. Does anybody know if anything is coming? Or what
But I
is
do know
happening?
that the mentions is important, like your ability to
Yes.
@mention somebody, your ability to create to-dos out of things.
So one of the big things, I didn't see any Ignite sessions, but one of the big things was that they removed it from Windows, and they added it back because there was so much screaming that it's back as a Windows app, not only web app. The only thing that I don't like now is when you go to Outlook and to make notes from the meeting, when you click OneNote, it defaults to the web. I used to be able to open a regular app automatically, but now it defaults to the web. But it's still a great app.
Yeah, it's a huge part of my workflow, and I love to hear that they're doing all this cool stuff with Whiteboard. But
Next Gen Canvas.
yeah, I'd love to see what that really means.
Yeah, me too.
They're gonna have search rate.
Tasks is really important as well, a lot of that task integration.
Yep.
But it's already integrated, right? Like I'm using, Tasks.
Well,
is
Tasks
integrated
itself
with
is
Outlook.
reinvented as well.
Yeah. So what I was doing in OneNote, you select an Outlook task, but then it syncs back to do, and I use it to do. So it's just like
We'll see.
Yeah.
Here's open.
Let's go there. Yeah. We're
Nice time.
Yeah.
I think we got 1 minute left.
Well, that's it, guys.
So- really we kind of glossed over some of the dev topics, and
There's
I know we
dev,
have
yeah,
some
definitely
devs
more
in
dev
the
that we
room.
can-
So, is there anything that you saw
Yeah.
at the Ignite conference that was you really wanted to see?
Yeah, so the important thing I would say is what's coming for SharePoint framework. Two things from there. First of all, now, well, not now, but soon, SharePoint framework developers will become Office 365 developers, because SharePoint framework will be exposed in all Office applications like Outlook, Word, PowerPoint, etc., etc. So it's really cool. You can make more money as a developer. It's the first part. The second part is Fluid framework that is currently like in really preview stuff, but it's cool engine for really quick authoring that will allow you like to create something, let's say, in SharePoint, like a SharePoint web part, and see the same stuff inside Microsoft Teams. And when one person starts to editing stuff, the second like sees that immediately. So it's a cool feature. Another thing around Microsoft Graph to mention is resource-specific permissions. It's especially important for Microsoft Teams. So, for example, you don't want to request permissions for like groups.read for all the groups, but you want to read information for either specific team or specific information inside group. So with resource-specific consent inside Microsoft Graph, you can do that as well. And yeah, take a look at the Microsoft Search announcements, because there are a lot of things you can do as a developer, including custom search reports, using Microsoft Search APIs around, I believe right now, to extend your or customize query streams inside search. So many great things for developers is coming there as well.
Thank you.
Quick question about, I see on one of your slides that new app catalog tenant or like site collection or something. Does that mean we have to like port our apps that are currently existing in that SharePoint site collection?
If you saw something I was doing, it was more about Teams app catalog.
Oh, okay. So that's not related to the SharePoint app catalog?
I haven't heard anything about the SharePoint app catalog changing.
I haven't either.
But the Teams catalog, now there's some major things going on there.
So if you deploy something in the Teams catalog, it won't show up on SharePoint, but if you deploy on the SharePoint catalog, you can bring it up onto the team?
I wasn't going there. I was just kind of saying that you build something in Power Apps, your ability to push it into the Teams catalog as an application. You build your Power Automate solution, your ability to wire it up and push it into the Teams.
Plus, one of the things they're showing is you can actually pin a Power App to the left side nav inside Teams as well. So you can say, hey, you got this, you have your time off request system you want everybody to be able to access easily. It's like, oh, okay, there it is. Click. Done.
Push it to search too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as a developer, your ability to kind of build things that actually have much more enterprise-wide capability, exposure. But again, there's some governance where you could totally block everybody from doing any of that as well. So it just depends on what kind of environment you kind of promote and build. But yeah, you could build a widget that then gets used in every team. And your ability to even create a team based on a team, that's pretty slick stuff too. Yeah. Lots of good stuff happening. Yeah. So next, yeah. So
just so they don't forget, I know since Perficient sponsoring, they do have some swag up front.
Yeah, there's some pens here.
Just so don't forget they're there.
Not really great swag. It was just We had left over from the big Microsoft
Fair.
Teams Summit. I thought,
Yeah.
Running out of gear like that, just goes nuts.
And it looks like the fancy type of pens that actually have the touch screen end on it too. So
Right.
You know, I didn't even know that what that was for.
It's
I
just-
thought
it's
it
just
was
a
really
squishy
bad
bar.
eraser, right?
It's a pen eraser, right?
Takes us back to the Treo or something, where you needed special styluses.
Yeah.
Anyway, so hopefully we'll see everybody in San Diego at SharePoint Saturday. Everybody have good holidays, and we'll see you guys back.
Thank you too.
On the other in the new year.
February.
February.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Alex.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See ya.
See you, Paul.
Bye, Paul. Thanks.
So that year of Yammer is the next year, right?
Yes. In fact, there's some really kind of funniness around the year of Yammer because there was this